Welcome back to the 2 Owls podcast. I'm your host, Caden. I'm joined with my fellow co-host.
Grant and Caden. Today we're going to be talking about Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton that's coming right up as we speak.
Two pretty good topics here, Grant. There's a lot to digest. There's a lot to talk about. So let's just get into it. So what do you have first for us?
100%. So, the first thing that I want to just talk about is just the event and catastrophic effect that Hurricane Helene has had on Florida, most of the southern states, and especially North Carolina. And just talk about Hurricane Helene by itself without talking about Hurricane Milton yet, because Hurricane Milton is coming like a freight train as we speak right through Florida, or is about to come right through Florida tomorrow and into Wednesday. So, what's some initial, just like background information? I'm pretty sure most people have been following stuff on Hurricane Helene, but like, what's some stuff that we should be updated about?
Well, it's been over. I think we're going on close to a week and a half now because it hit 2 weekends ago. Not this current past weekend, but the weekend prior. And there's still, other than just citizens and doing their, I guess, courtesy and love for country and love for people helping out. The government has not assisted in any aid whatsoever, and FEMA, which we're going to look at today, guys, FEMA is currently also not really being a big help at all either. So
Yeah. So, and this is while researching this, it's been kind of heavy just to look into this because it's really sad to see how far our government has come in terms of just really not giving two craps about the people anymore and about the people who they serve. They're more concerned about foreign influence and more or less just getting rich off of the unfortunate, honestly. And, even though that's like a very very simple interpretation of making the government look evil, it's ultimately true. But we're going to dive deeper into those details about FEMA, especially. But, in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, there was great devastation in Georgia, Florida, but especially great devastation of where it finally hit landfall, which was in North Carolina in the Appalachian Mountains. And the weirdest part about this, Caden, is that it hit and influenced a mountainous region of all places.
I know, which is crazy. You wouldn't think there'd be flooding in the mountains, which I
No.
was talking to two fellow coworkers today, and they're who kind of been in the Appalachians and stuff, I guess. I'm assuming they have, but they're like, well, the Tennessee River, which is what flooded right there, they say that when that floods, there's nowhere for the water to go. But as I'm watching, I've been to the North Carolina Appalachian Mountains. My grandparents, they live up in the Appalachian Mountains in another state. And I have friends and obviously family that are all lived through Appalachia. And I got to tell you, it doesn't flood up there. Everything is downhill. It doesn't flood. So, and if you look at where these towns are at, uh, they're all in mountains. Like everything's going downhill. So it doesn't make sense for it to be flooding there. But with the amount of rain they got,
20
which is
inches of rain for reference,
yeah,
which is
which is
insane.
unprecedented for that region. Yeah, it makes it's somewhat, I guess, geography wise makes sense, but it's still a very rare occurrence, which is also why a lot of people in those mountains, they didn't have flood insurance because they didn't think it was actually going to rain. But Grant, kind of getting into our first point here, uh, did you see the trajectory path for Hurricane Helene? Because it kept wanting to go
Yes.
west, but
So, yeah,
something was kind of swinging it towards North Carolina. So let's get
Yeah,
into
so
that.
that's the kind of weird and interesting part in all of this, And not that, as everyone keeps saying who have been talking about this topic in particular, not that the government is influencing the weather, but just maybe, just maybe they are. And the reason we say that, and the reason I say that is because you look at just like first of all, the trajectory. Yeah, let's talk about the trajectory. So the
Hmm.
trajectory of Hurricane Helene was supposed to actually fly up through the southern states and end somewhere near Illinois.
Like
Okay.
Illinois, Iowa area. Yep.
Exactly. Illinois, Iowa area. And so, that kind of the trajectory made sense. There was all of the data, all of everything that they did and all the research that the meteorologists did. But then there was a significant change in the middle of them tracking it, and it started to go towards Ohio, Indiana area. And then it shifted again a day later, but then almost in a 24-hour period, it started to veer east. And, I just think it's kind of interesting and kind of weird that you literally have Hurricane Helene. And, think about this, right? I just want to bring this into reference. Like, all of our meteorologists, all of our modern day meteorologists, they all have these massive radar stations that are able to track storms with almost pinpoint accuracy these days. Because, about 10 years ago, it was really hard to do things like, for instance, track a lot of the weather and be right about it sometimes, just because they didn't have a lot of the technological advancements in terms of radar systems, and not only radar systems, but just like the ability to use a lot of satellite data in real time. Because a lot of the time, especially 20 years ago, like for reference, the reason why predictions from the weatherman, quote unquote, were so like amiss sometimes was because they could only rely on prediction models. But now we're able to track weather in real time. And so
Hmm.
with this real time data, it would be safe to assume that the meteorologists were not getting it wrong. They knew where this hurricane was headed. And one of the most interesting things in this period when Hurricane Helene was changing trajectories, there was an aircraft that was circling around in this weird pattern around Hurricane
Consistently
Helene.
staying above.
Exactly, and
And
consistently staying above.
it was a NOAA flight, which is National Weather Service, guys.
Yeah, and it was a Lockheed Martin Orion P3. And what's interesting about this plane is that the last time that this was used in the 1960s to manipulate Hurricane Camille and to quote weather war on Cuba. Now, I don't know about you, but it's interesting that the government is almost trying to hide their capabilities in terms of, like, let's say, controlling the weather. And Caden, I think it's interesting too because it's like, even though the government is kind of staying quiet on the whole idea that they can control the weather, because it's like, it's not like a hidden secret that farmers even use certain types of chemicals to simulate rainfall out where there isn't a lot of rainfall for their crops and stuff.
Well, I can't remember the state. I'm gonna blank on it, so forgive me, guys. But there is a farmer and his wife that they actually, and I believe it's in the Midwest, but they got a farm, and what they do is they actually have um they have a machine basically that whenever it's going to hail, because hail destroys crops, and a lot of these some of these farmers can't afford to have that happen. So there's a farmer that has an actual machine that when a storm comes in, they actually shoot stuff up into the air, and it releases some type of stuff to actually break up the hailstorm before it gets to their crops. And it not only helps their crops, but it also helps neighboring farms as well to not get affected by it. And if you guys don't believe me, you guys can go look this up. And I will try and get you that name before this podcast ends. I'm just blanking on the name of the farmer.
Yeah, so and like those are good examples of the just like the simple fact that if farmers are able to manipulate the weather, the government can surely like affect the weather, especially during a hurricane such like this. And Caden, for the people out there who want to think well and think well of people, think well of the government and stuff like that, one thing that I want to say too is that one theory that could have happened is, oh, let's theoretically say they wanted to stop the hurricane. So they tried to change the trajectory. They tried to do different things
Hmm.
with it, and then it ended up actually causing more devastation than it would have had originally. And maybe that's why the government's trying to make it look like it's not a big deal because they don't want to admit that they're the reason that this has happened. Obviously, I feel as though there's probably more nefarious reasons why this happened, but that could be a possible theory. I mean, what are some thoughts in terms of like why this might have happened, or why even the government would have controlled the weather in the first place?
Well, they started testing for it back in the 1940s, which you guys can actually go look at this. They started dropping different types. I want to say it was not necessarily missiles, but they started dropping different types of like explosives or whatever inside of storms to see if they can actually break it up or dissipate it. Which they were actually, believe it or not, they were successful with it. And so they've been testing on this since the 1940s. And there is a company called Harp that is actually very interesting, guys. If you go look at it, um, I mean, I'm not going to get into specifics regarding Harp as of right now, but I've been looking
And
at
that's
Harp for a while.
HAARP.
Yes,
Yeah.
Harp. Um, they're interesting because they specifically deal with weather. Um, Now, regarding this hurricane, at least Hurricane Helene, there so North Carolina has two of the biggest deposits in the world. One of those being for lithium, and I forget. I want to say it's quartz is the other one,
Yes,
if
it's
I'm not
quartz.
mistaken. Is
And
okay, quartz.
yeah, and what's
And
interesting about the quartz
mhm.
resource in North Carolina is that there's so much of it that it could make a almost like $500 billion industry of just mining
Well, not
quartz.
not not just that, but the lithium mines. So, guys, there is a company called Albemarle. I'm forgive me if I'm saying that name wrong. Uh, Albemarle Lithium. And they did a $50 million deal with the DOJ here um, to actually mine in Chimney Rock, North Carolina. Now the problem is that where the area that they want to mine is sits on a lot of people's land and towns and everything else. Now this is all stuff you guys can go look at. Um, but with it being said, they want to get the mine up and going in 2025. At least the
Actually,
lithium
they
mine
already began the lithium mine back in May
did.
7th of 2024 because
Okay,
they got the permits then, and then they started to do that. But in the
but
process,
need
though,
to they
it,
want to expand it. And so
yeah,
guys, when
and
their
they've been actually
expansion
trying
plan,
to buy homeowners out and trying to get
and
homeowners to sell their
they're
land.
not being successful because because North Carolina is a southern state, and if you know anything about the South, once people acquire land, they're not going to get rid of it. So they're not successfully being able to buy these people out. And if they are able to access all the land that they need, this will become the third it'll be the biggest lithium mine here in the country, and it'll be the third biggest lithium mine in the entire world. um and this is one of the North Carolina has one of the biggest lithium deposits in the world. It's like I think it's like ranks number 2 or 3 on that list as far as like how much lithium is there.
Yep.
And then yeah, but they're so the quartz actually is they actually did a deal with Tesla to make lithium for the Tesla batteries. And then there's another computer chip company that uses quartz, and that's the other company that wants to do the quartz mine as well. I think it'll be again the biggest quartz mine in the United States. But in
Yeah,
order for
and
them to access and mine this places, they have to first gain access to the land. And so, Grant,
exactly.
should we talk about how they're going to gain access to this? Because this isn't uncommon. Like you can
No,
look in history and see whenever the government needed land in order to acquire stuff, some stuff happened. So,
exactly.
should we get into that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I wanted to say too is that for anyone thinking about quartz and being like, "Oh, what's the big deal about quartz?" Well, like every computer, every phone, every device you have touched in the past 24 hours has quartz crystals inside of it and has it
Mhm.
in the microprocessor. So that's why the quartz is so important. It's not just a gemstone. It's literally used in electronics every single day.
So, Grant, in order for them to get this land, the scary word that comes from the government that I don't actually think a lot of people even really know about because I've talked about this with several people and they've never really even heard of this before. Um, so how does the government go about acquiring people's land
Well,
if they need it?
yeah, in the case of natural disaster, war, if the government needs it, if there's scarce resources, there's a thing called, in Caden, what's it called?
Intimate domain.
Intimate domain. And this is special because it almost feels so illegal, but it's sadly written into our laws and into it's a very legal thing that the government can do. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
hopefully in the future someone will change it so that we can protect more people's rights in the future. But it's something that the government might do in order to possess some of the lands down in Chimney Rock and um, Asheville.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so for instance, like since all of these lands are plentiful with lithium and um, quartz and all this stuff, let's just say that the mud is toxic, or let's just say it's not livable there anymore. Because honestly, if you look at some of the pictures, I'm pretty sure you have too, Caden. Have you seen the before and after of what Chimney Rock used to be? Like,
Yes, I have.
it's like
It
night and
was
day.
it was a very vibrant town, and now it literally looks like a third world country.
Literally
And
third world country. Worse than a third
just to
world
kind of
country. I mean, like, decimated.
give you guys some background on intimate domain, it was the United States 91, U.S. 367 in 1875. The Supreme Court held that the government may seize property through the use of intimate domain as long as it appropriates just compensation to the owner of the property. Now, basically the reason they did this is in 1875 was the expansion westward for the railroads, and it was running through a lot of people's different prop different property and stuff. And so what they do is they go not seize the whole property, but they would come in and acquire a certain percentage of it in order to make that railroad, or that section of the railroad. And they did it a lot on like Indian reservations and stuff too. Um,
But, the only difference is that they didn't pay the Indians anything.
Hardly
So,
nothing. But
yeah.
to be honest with you, and this we can get into this on another podcast episode, but I've been to a lot of the different Indian reservations and I've been through them. I had a job where I was traveling a lot, and especially in the western states, and I did end up going to a lot of Indian reservations. And can I just say, for the record, number one, what we did to them was absolutely horrible. But number two, we gave them the crappiest portions of land. and sit
Literally.
here.
Yeah.
Like
You
it's
know,
you can't even grow stuff. Now, I will say this: some of the Indians on like the eastern United States and even in the central United States, they did get decent like ranch land, farmland, and
yeah.
other stuff. But the western states, like New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, they are literally even California. They're it's literally nothing but desert. Like there's nothing can grow there.
Yeah.
So, but that's just
Seriously.
kind of a side note. Um, but eminent domain, it started in 1875, and it's you don't really hear about it being used a lot because it's a very extreme measure that they do. But in order for it to have to go, in order for it to be a just reason, normally it has to do with the need for the community or the people. So like if they're trying to build an airport for like a major city, or just like even if it's like even something as like a like power lines, or even how a company, what is it called, Grant? You see them when you're driving down in a country road sometimes. It's like a big fenced in area with a bunch of like power stuff that literally supplies the different towns and stuff. um do you
Um
know what I'm referring to?
yeah, I do. I'm blanking
I
too,
can't. I'm
honestly.
blanking on the name, but basically, whenever they need access to land, um, that is for the need of like people or whatever, they can, and it's normally not the entire land that they get. It's very extreme rare cases that you actually see that. Being that I live in Texas, I do know for a fact that I actually am about 10 minutes away from the biggest lake in Texas, Lake Livingston. And just to give you guys a little bit of history on that, because it does I can relate it back to what's going on in North Carolina. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, um, the need for specifically water in this area in Texas was a major thing, especially in Houston. And the Trinity River, which runs through Lake Livingston, it was not supplying enough water to they had it dammed up, but it was so many miles away from the actual city of Houston. And so what they ended up doing is they went to a lot of ranch land and towns, because there was towns that were living where this lake is now. um and they went in and bought up a bunch of property and basically kicked people off their land. It was a big deal back then. I mean, people in the area still talk about it when they look at Lake Livingston. And actually, if you go deep diving in Lake Livingston, which Lake Livingston is the deepest lake in Texas as well. I think it's like 180 feet deep or something crazy like that. It's like super deep. But when you go diving in it, you can actually see like old towns, houses, barns, farm equipment, all that stuff, because they let that river run straight through, and then fill up, and then they dammed it up down, um, down the lake. And believe it or not, you can actually still see the stream. Like if you get up on the Lake Livingston Bridge, up on that bridge, you can actually see the current that still runs, because the Trinity River still runs through the middle of that lake. Um, and they did the same thing up at a lake up outside of Garland, Texas, as well. And now they're trying to do it outside of I think near oh, what is it? Outside of Dallas, like west of the DFW Metroplex, or I'm sorry, east of the DFW Metroplex, like maybe an hour or two outside of the DFW Metroplex. They're trying to right now. They got the Silver Spring River dammed up, but they're trying to do the same thing that they did for Livingston. They're trying to do the same thing up there because they're having a water problem now. Well, the reason I'm telling you guys this is because whenever there's a need for something, they can actually do that. That's why they did that in 1875. But the problem is there's not really. Let's just be honest here. People can have access to gas powered vehicles. So mining for lithium is not necessarily one of the bigger needs right now. I mean, it's more of a necessity, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't have to have electric cars,
No, absolutely
and
not.
people don't have to have like different things that they want, that they're pushing for.
Exactly.
So
And
the
plus, think
second
about this.
reason.
This is the most ironic part, too. During the hurricane, I saw someone post on X this. What worked during the hurricane? Gas stoves, gas
Hmm.
cars, gas, anything powered by gas. Guess what was all useless? Anything powered by a battery or
Yep.
electricity. So, you know, it's just funny that our government thinks we need this when in reality, actually, did you know that the the fumes that are used with lithium to create batteries for these electric cars actually
It's actually
cause
more
more
harmful
harm to our
to the environment.
atmosphere than any kind of carbon emissions that we could ever put into the atmosphere.
Which carbon emissions is not really. I mean, it's not.
It's not
I
even
think
good science, honestly.
no, it's not. And there was a study done that it's real. People think that that it's saving, like when they drive a truck in like eco mode or something, or they're not rolling coal. They're not affecting anything, to be honest with you.
It's all a
The what
facade.
Yeah, it's all sod anyway. Um, and so basically, guys, so so another thing that the government can do in as far as eminent domain is if an area is declared a disaster zone. And there's like so many days that have to pass in order for it to be declared a disaster zone or whatever. But if they declare it a disaster zone, then there's no bartering with the people for buying their land. Like the government has the power to say, "Hey, this is a disaster zone. We're declaring this unsafe. Here's." They pay what the land was worth 3 years ago, not what it's worth today. So they're not people aren't even getting the full compensation for their property. But they can buy it at a cheaper rate. And so that's kind of what you're seeing now, because they're, like I said, you can go to the DOJ's website and see that they've made a deal with this company to in order to mine lithium and quartz. So it's really interesting to see, and I know a lot of people are confused, like, why is FEMA, like, because guys, there are literally, and this is another thing that we wanted to get into, was what FEMA's doing. Like FEMA's literally blocking shipments of goods. Like I just listened to I literally saw a video this morning. um and I can get you guys the person's name, but this girl, she does a lot of she's been going and helping out at these out at Chimney Rock and all these other places, and she's having to be very careful, especially when she sees FEMA, because FEMA will literally confiscate all her supplies that she's trying to give out. And unfortunately, what we're seeing here is that people have been following the FEMA stuff. And what we're noticing is that they're when they confiscate people's like supplies that they're trying to give to other people, they take it to a location and then they reload that stuff up, and then they are actually taking it to sanctuary cities that illegal immigrants are currently living in. There's also
Yeah, that.
videos on
And
the
then
internet.
I was going to say too, there's
Go ahead, Grant.
also sorry, there's also a lot of evidence. This was true evidence because the guy called into
Mhm,
the sheriff's office and was asking, "Oh, hey, what's going on with these shipments? Why are they being taken and then
mhm.
held at the airport or shipped somewhere else?" And they basically said, "Oh, we want to be able to control where everything goes." And so,
So her account, so the girl that I was talking about, her name is or well, her account name is Megan Bacon, or MEGSN Bacon. But
Bacon, BACN.
BACON.
Oh, I saw somewhere that her account name was BACN, like
Oh, it
Megan
could
and the
be. I'm
BACN.
just looking at the at right now. I could be wrong.
Okay,
But
that's what I saw at least because I know who you're talking about,
um,
but
yeah, no, she's literally sitting here talking about like what's going on, because she's been volunteering at least 2 or 3 times a week, driving up there and helping people out. So, but yeah, there's also another video of a Black Hawk helicopter coming into a site that volunteers had set up with like supplies and everything, and it's an unmarked Black Hawk helicopter, but it comes down and it starts blowing everything everywhere, like destroying the area, and then it leaves. Like
Yep.
and I'm like, so people are asking like, why is FEMA trying to stop this stuff? Like they're stopping truckloads of shipments and they're even stopping medical personnel, like to the point to where the sheriff's office, like what Grant was saying, had to get involved and say, we're gonna arrest you guys
Yep.
if you continue to block this stuff. So it kind of makes sense because if they let this go on for actually a little bit longer, and don't, I mean, there's still guys, there's reports and pictures out there of bodies in trees. Bodies are just floating rivers, floating in the flooded areas. They're not cleaning up anything, and people are trying to get in there. There's, I think, Grant, what, there's over still like over what, like almost 200 dead, and there's like another 150, or I may have those numbers backwards,
No,
but
yeah,
there's like
200 dead. Yeah.
200 dead, and there, I know there's like 180 still missing
Yeah, something
almost.
like that. And it's sad too because it's like because it's just the fact of this, right? Whether or not the government caused Hurricane Helene to hit North Carolina specifically, that part doesn't matter. The thing that matters is the fact that in the wake of a disaster, they're not even trying to send their most competent people to be able
Mm-mm.
to address this disaster head on. Like, they have sent the most incompetent people to sit at tables and literally do nothing all day, waiting for people to quote unquote sign up for aid from FEMA.
Yeah, and they're also, yeah, and then the $750 that Kamala and Biden promised to people, you listen to these people on the internet that live there, and these are people that are, you can clearly see, are in the disaster area, that they're just trying to get money to be able to like get out, and they're not even able to get the access to that. And
Exactly.
then the guy who runs FEMA literally is like, "Oh, we're out of all that talk that Biden did about Biden and Harris did. Oh, we're ready for hurricane season. We're ready for this." Guys, all that money was spent either giving millions to other countries or giving it to illegals. They're completely out of a hurricane fund. The
Exactly.
government does not have any money, but yet it's funny that they say that, and then even as of this weekend, they're still giving millions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, Israel, and all these other countries, and it's like, why aren't they taking care of us? Like I know
Exactly.
we probably weren't going to get into this, but there was a lot of talk over the past week, especially because like even as of Wednesday and Thursday of last week, that they're like, it's been like 4 or 5 days now since Helene's hit, and no one's in there cleaning up anything, and so people are sick of it.
Oh
So
yeah.
the government sitting there saying, "Oh, we don't have any more money to help their own people, American citizens
Nope.
out,"
And
and American citizens are looking at it and they're like, "Okay, well, you just gave all of our tax dollars over to other countries." So believe it or not, on October 7th, which is today currently, there's a mass number of people that went to their companies, that are W-2 employees, that went to their companies, and they are withholding their taxes.
yep.
Basically, if you withhold your taxes, the government can't take any money out. According to the government, you still owe them at the end of the year. You have to report it, assuming that you do. I'm not going to tell you guys what to do on that, but I'm pretty sure you
We
can
aren't
get at
tax
what I'm implying.
professionals. Wink, wink.
We're
Just
not tax
kidding.
professionals, but there's basic logic in this, right? We're paying the government to do a job. They're not
Yep.
doing their job. They're not helping out, so therefore we stop paying. I mean,
And
it's pretty simple.
I think it's also interesting too for all the people who are doubting about all of this quote unquote conspiracy theories. None of this is a conspiracy theory because um, who would you rather trust? The people who are deeply affected by this catastrophe and crisis, or
For your government.
or the government or the stupid media who literally lies to your face? Okay, think about this, right? This is the funniest thing. As you said, Biden says, "Oh, we're not out of money. FEMA isn't out of money." But then just a couple days before not before Helene hits, but a day after Helene hits, Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says, "Oh, FEMA has no money left."
Hmm.
So who's right? Is it the main man, part of your administration, that has the numbers, that has the details? By the way, he's also responsible for the open border. So thanks a lot, man. But it's just the fact that this man, literally a part of the Biden administration, literally a part of the illegal immigrants coming into our country illegally and taking all of our resources, he also has the guts to say we have no funding, and Biden still says, "Yeah, we do. Sure, we do."
You know what I love? I love the fact that people are holding Kamala responsible because they know that old Sleepy Joe, he's incompetent. Like,
No,
there's
no.
no way he's
He's
running this
literally
country.
on the beach every other day. Not even a joke. That's not. Do you know that's not even a joke? He spent
I know.
almost half of his presidency on the beach or
I know
on
it's like
vacation.
500 to 600 days on vacation.
Not even a joke. That's the saddest thing. It's not even a
Yeah.
joke. But
And
like,
I was there for like the first quarter of his presidency up there in Delaware, and every time he came to Delaware, everything would shut down. It was like miserable getting. I'd have to drive 20 minutes south to get home, and it was like virtually impossible. Like, everyone would have to leave early from work just to be able to get home because he's coming in and going to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, for the weekend. And it's like,
by the
really,
way, if
like
you're
you don't have
rich,
anything better to do.
yeah, literally, if you're rich and the president, wouldn't you go to a different beach? Why would you go to the Rehoboth Beach in Delaware?
Delaware, like that, it's such a crappy beach in general. Anyway, not moving on. I'm not throwing shade at Delaware, but yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Yes, yes, you are.
Um. Anyway, moving on, getting into something else here, guys. So FEMA's blocking stuff and everything. They're running out of money. People are withholding their taxes because they're unhappy about what's happening. And then now you guys have Hurricane Milton, that, by the way, was only supposed to be a category 4. As of this afternoon, it was upgraded to a category 5. When it makes landfall,
And it's
they
close to
are
a
bank
category 6 now.
it is the second strongest hurricane. So me and Grant, actually, we just read something right before we started recording this. Um, there it is the second strongest hurricane to make landfall. And according to meteorologist Noah Bergen, and I'll read you this exact thing. And this is a quote. So, quote, "This is nothing short of astronomical meteorologically. Not many more ways to describe you the storm's small eye and extreme intensity. 87 MB pressure with 180 mile per hour max sustained winds and gust up to 200 mile an hour plus. The eye is tiny at nearly 3.8 miles wide. This hurricane is nearing the mathematical limit of what the Earth's atmosphere over this ocean water can produce. See, not a joke. A reminder: this is not expected to landfall at this intensity, but will be powerful, dangerous hurricane for Florida should landfall. As he is saying, a 3 or a 4 at current expectations. Max intensity is either tonight or Tuesday. Um, but there's been other meteorologists that are actually stating, and he's downplaying it because he's kind of a mainstream meteorologist as well. So I mean, I get those guys are like trying to keep the peace or whatever, but there's other meteorologists that are stating that this is not slowing down. Like, it's picking up almost to a Cat 6. I mean, people are hoping that it dies down to a category 4, category 3, but as of right now, it's going to make landfall at a category 5. And the crazy thing is, with it upgrading to a category 5, it just shifted northwest. So when it goes through Florida and gets over Florida, it is going to travel at a northwest direction. And so Chimney Rock and Asheville, North Carolina are not out of the woods just yet, as sad to say, but they're not out of the woods yet. It's kind of scary. But the even crazier thing is, once this weekend happens and Milton is gone and goes back out into the Atlantic, there is another low pressure system forming that's south of the Gulf of Mexico right now. It's going to come over the islands and enter into the Gulf, and it's supposed to form into a hurricane. Now, they're not exactly sure where this one's going to make landfall, but they know for a fact that it's going to either hit the coast of Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, or Florida. Um, which I know that's crazy to say. It's like how much can Florida take? But I mean, I don't think this is I don't think this is done on accident, and this is also what me and Grant wanted to talk to you guys about. We have a couple of different, let's call it educated theories on why this is going to happen and or why this is taking place. And it's specifically regarding on the hypothetical notion that the government can control the weather, which there
Mm-hmm.
has been studies done and evidence shown that they can or at least manipulate the
Literal
weather.
evidence.
I mean, again, guys, all you have to do is go look at the hypothetical path every day that Helene, once it made landfall in Florida, the hypothetical or the path that it was supposed to take, and every time it wanted to shift westwards towards like Iowa and Illinois, you watch this little plane that's just staying over the hurricane, and it would shift it back towards North Carolina. It wasn't supposed to hit North Carolina at all. That's
Mm-hmm.
why nobody was prepared. Nobody was expecting it to hit,
Exactly.
and here we are. So, Grant, what is your kind of theory or take
So
on all this craziness?
yeah, so my first theory, I'm not going to say it word for word because I know that the feds are always listening. But
I don't care.
but the one thing I want to say, and I think people can put two and two together, is it's almost as if these hurricanes are designed to take out infrastructure right before an election
Mm.
with electronic devices.
Now think about it, guys. The states that are going to be voting for Trump the most are your southern states. The state that Kamala's, if now I don't recommend going and listening to this podcast episode that she did with the Call Her Daddy lady, but I did just to see
And
what
how
if
was that,
stuff.
Caden?
Oh my god, I wanted to hit my computer because let me explain, guys. She obviously all they did was talk about abortion and rights and all that other stuff, and it's it's unbelievable what she said. Like she called Trump a liar, stating that you can't abort a baby at 9 months, which there you can literally as a female you can call into Planned Parenthood at a facility and literally say, I'm 9 months pregnant, 36 week or 34 weeks pregnant," and they will tell you it's going that you absolutely can get an abortion. However, you're not going to get it when you're 34 weeks pregnant. They're going to end up pushing you to 36 weeks pregnant to get that
Yep,
abortion. So
exactly.
yes, she's a complete liar. Um, However, with that being said, she does not like the southern states, and specifically regarding the majority of southern states, except for
And that's why
Virginia,
she doesn't visit them.
they have very strict abortion laws, and so um, she doesn't like them. Now, the majority of the states that are that are guaranteed to be voting for Trump is your southern states. And it would make sense that in lieu of a lot of stuff that's happened, especially in the past year or two, um, there's no way she wins this election without some crazy stuff happening. And if people can't get to the polls and vote, if the electronic systems are out, mail-in ballots have to happen, all that stuff. It's very easy to misplace those mail-in ballots. It's also very easy to say, "Oh, well, sorry, you can't vote because," or there's not going to hold another special election, or they're not going to postpone the election just because people can't vote. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yep.
I'm fully in agreement with Grant that this is definitely politically motivated. Um, it's also why she's not once on that podcast did she say my heart and prayer goes out to, or my heart and hopes, or whatever they freaking say that. But not once did she even mention the victims of Helene
Yeah, exactly.
at all.
It's
And so
it's
if you
sad, and it's sad to see too. You can see actions always speak louder than words, because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, even though Trump says the most stupidest crap you've ever heard in your entire life,
No,
um, he is at least a very genuine human being and actually genuinely cares about people. He
well,
donated over $25 million towards Hurricane Helene efforts in terms of like helping the victims of Hurricane Helene.
there's also been a lot of celebrities stepping up too. I mean, Morgan Wallen, he donated 500,000, and then he's also been doing different T-shirts
Yep.
and stuff. All the proceeds going to them, and there's a number of other celebrities
I also saw
and
Dolly
people.
Parton donating $1 million.
Yeah. So, and the government is literally asking private citizens to step up because they don't have any more money for
Yep.
us because they gave it all to the illegal immigrants, which is great, by the way.
And
It's really government really spending our tax
yeah,
dollars
yeah,
amazing.
exactly. And Caden, I
Um,
want to say one thing too about the fact that like at the end of the day, whether or not let's just theoretically say the government isn't trying to nefariously target us and subvert our rights. Obviously they are, but let's just say they aren't, okay?
uh-huh.
The stupidest thing about this administration, about the Biden Harris administration, is the fact that they have no just like they have no common sense in terms of just simply communicating with the people.
No.
They aren't honest. And if they were honest, we still would be mad at them, but we wouldn't be as mad as much. like
I mean,
it's just the fact that
it
like our government lies all the time and they think it like prevents us from being angry at them, but it only makes us more angry at them. And there's no
we're
communication
sick of
and
it.
they're all incompetent. Yeah, and we're sick of it. We're
I
sick
mean,
of the lies and we're sick of the stupidity.
Elon Musk just gave he's been donating Starlink setups to give people power and to help with medical and everything else. And FEMA is blocking. He literally, guys, you can go to his Twitter page and he's literally got a text from his people that FEMA is blocking and stopping their Starlink setups. They're
Literally.
confiscating it. And
And you
then
know why? Because he's supporting Donald Trump. But then, oh,
yeah,
if it's AT&T or Sprint or if it's T-Mobile or if it's anyone else, sure, you can come in and help because why? Because you're controlled by the liberal elite. That's why. As soon as a conservative gets involved, they're suddenly up in arms. Suddenly, the federal government wants to control everything that happens because they don't want the narrative to get out that conservatives, oh, get this, conservatives actually care. Who knew? Like, their whole idea is to make conservatives look like the most crappiest, most like idiotic people they can. But in
yep.
reality, a conservative is like they just want the best for America. Like most conservatives these days aren't even true conservatives. They just want the best for America at the end of the day. And it's sad that we have almost lost our humanity in the current American climate and politics because liberals and the liberal elite in our federal government is literally willing to let the victims of Hurricane Helene struggle and drown and fight for themselves without any aid or help just
Yeah.
because of partisan politics.
I mean, my thoughts on it, Grant, on why this is happening is the same as you. To be honest with you, I mean, it's not much differing. I think this is completely a total setup. I mean, I've been stating that they're going to nefariously try and rig the election or steal the election. I mean, guys, if
Declare
you go to
martial law,
Washington, declare martial law. I mean,
and that's a theory that's been happening since before any of this happened. Since before
yeah,
Kamala was even declared president, not president, but I mean she basically is. But before Kamala was even declared the candidate, I mean
yeah.
this theory has been coming on, and I don't think it's just a QAnon conspiracy theory. I think there's something deeper that's happening in the deep state.
And here's my thoughts on it, guys. I really do think I've been saying this for the past couple of years, and I'm going to continue to state this. I think best case scenario, Trump gets in. We have a fair election. Trump wins. 4 years of amazingness, but I don't think they want that to happen. I mean, he basically undid everything that Obama tried to work his butt off for 8 years. And they did not like that at all.
Nope. And
So if he gets in again, he's just going to undo it. I mean, he's already talking about opening up the Keystone Pipeline and everything else.
yep.
So again, best case scenario, he gets in. My two or three other scenarios is one, he wins the election, but they declare him ineligible on January 6th, and there's already been Democratic officials that have stated that they are preparing for Civil War like events. That's why if you go to Washington D.C. right now, there's riot barricades everywhere. Um, I think the other thing that happens is with them doing the FEMA thing and everything else, and people getting sick of stuff. If anything else, like if it starts to get super bad, martial law could be declared. Um, and obviously we know Biden would not be doing anything. It'd be Kamala. Like they would declare Biden unfit to whatever because they can't stop anything. No one can stop anything once martial law is declared. And so they would declare Biden unfit and then Kamala would be running. Um
And
and I mean
unfortunately, everything for that to happen is in place. We have a
it's in
kleptocracy
place.
that's run by basically American oligarchs. I mean,
I mean, there's also the illegals. Don't forget about them. I mean,
exactly.
they're trying to allow them to be able to vote. They don't. Some of them don't even have their citizenship, and they're
No.
trying to get them to be able to vote.
Yeah, and they're
Which
doing
is
that by fast tracking them into jobs and literally
yep,
taking all of our jobs away.
yeah.
Literally
They
taking the
really are. They're taking jobs. There are people, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, HVAC, truckers, even oil field workers, construction. I mean, everything. If you look at this, if you work in a blue collar industry as a white man or even a black man, you are the minority.
yep,
It's all Muslims,
especially in the South,
Mexicans. Yes, I can personally attest to
especially
that because I
because
live in the South.
one of the most interesting things that I see up here in the north, because for reference, I live up here near Pennsylvania, guys, or in Pennsylvania, I mean. But basically, like the most interesting thing about the north is that you don't see a lot of these things happening because I really truly believe they're trying to hide as much of this crisis from liberal or swing states. And yes,
Hmm.
obviously, is the migrant crisis still affecting places like New York and parts of Pennsylvania and other places? Yes, but it's not as extreme as what's happening in other Republican controlled states, like the South, for instance. Um, and so, I just think it's interesting. And I just think that we just need to all be ready. We need to be willing to, register to vote and to make sure the people around us are voting because at the end of the
Well,
day, our
voter
voice.
registration closes on October 7th, which is today. So I
So
hope
yeah,
everyone
never mind. So,
I hope everyone is registered to vote and
exactly.
goes to the polls if you are. I mean,
Exactly. And then make sure the people who are registered that they go with you or you make sure they go vote because at the
drag them by the hair to the polls. My God, no,
yes,
I'm just kidding.
literally. Because at the end of the
But
day, everyone's votes count. It really
yeah,
does. It really truly does. People can say, "Oh no, it doesn't." Yes, it truly does. And every vote counts because it's the voice of our decision that actually guides the future of this country. Because as Elon Musk, as many other people have said already, if Donald Trump loses, this is the last election, guaranteed. There will never
yeah.
be another fair election, and that's not even just like paranoia. That's just reality. They want to take away the First Amendment, our Second Amendment. They want to take
Well,
away our rights.
you have Hillary Clinton that just quoted that will literally just stated that basically free speech is they need to get rid of it.
Yep, because
And then
misinformation. Because if it's misinformation or hate speech, it's not free speech. So therefore, we should get
Kamala's
rid of it.
talking about regulating stuff as well, like fact checking, like everything, like
It's disgusting.
regulating fact checking and everything else. Like
Yep.
the Democrats are not for democracy. They're not for freedom.
No.
They want to control.
And that's why you see people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and many other Democrats. I believe also Joe Manchin will hopefully be one of those Democrats who will join Trump's forces. But basically, you see all these Democrats coming out because they believe in a tomorrow of a free America. They don't believe in a
Hmm.
subverted kleptocracy of just chaos and corruption. They want to
Hmm.
see America thrive. And that's not going to be through picking the Democrat Party because, oh, they say things correctly. No, they are out for your family. They are out for you. They are out for your rights. And honestly, they're just the enemies of America. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And sad
Agreed.
that it's come to this. Um, but I really hope that people can just see the light and see the truth of what's happening. Because at the end of the day, guess what? You don't have to like Donald Trump, but what you're voting for is freedom and a better tomorrow. You're literally voting for the ability for your future grandchildren to be able to vote still. That's what you're voting for.
Yeah.
But Caden, I think this episode has been fun, and
Has.
I'm excited for our next episode, and I am just gonna look forward to that, man.
Yeah. And guys, if you're listening to this and you live in anywhere in North Carolina and have friends or family, or North Carolina, Tennessee, or any place that was affected by the recent hurricane, our thoughts and prayers are with you, um, as well as the people that are currently in the path of Milton. Please be safe, and we're gonna pray for safety and everything else. So
Exactly, exactly. And and I think that wraps our episode quite nicely.
yeah,
Make sure
you
to
guys,
like, follow, subscribe, whatever, guys, and just leave your thoughts in the comments on YouTube or on our Instagram or wherever.
absolutely. Well, guys, you have a good week, and we'll be at you next episode.